I hope you guys are doing well. Okay, so in this particular lecture series of Lakshmikkant'S Polity Summary, we have completed till Indian Councils Act of 1892. So today we will be covering Indian Councils Act 1909, that is known as Parliamentary Reform. Very important. Okay, so after that we will be dealing with Government of India Act of 1919. Later Government of India Act of 1935, and at last we will be dealing with Indian Independence Act of 1947. Okay, so after completion of this act, Indian Independence Act of 1947, we will be covering whole the historical background. Okay, so let's go ahead. So it introduced for the first time an element of elections to the Legislative Council. Okay, at the Provincial Legislative Council, non-official member to win majority. In this line, there is nothing to be worried. Just remember the thing. Okay. So, what were the another provision that this particular act includes? That is introduction of separate electorates for Muslim. Okay. It provided Indian Council Act basically provided for the separate electorate. So if we talk about this particular act, Morlemento into reform, what is it doing? It is basically providing separate electorates for Muslims. Okay, so this point should be noted. Okay, and remember this. So after that, it also provided representation in excess of population according to Muslim. Okay, income qualification law for Muslim voter. It provided for the first time association of Indians with the executive council of viceroy and governor. And what I am talking, that Indian Councils Act of 1909, that is widely known as Morlemento reforms. Okay, so it is providing that now Indians can be in executive councils of viceroy and governor. This point is very much important. Association of Indians in viceroy's executive council. Okay, and governor as well. So Satyendrath Prasad Sinha became the first Indian to join Viceroy Executive Council. Okay, and one more thing, the Satyendrath Sinha was appointed as the law member. Okay, so this is a good point, that this parliamentary reform suggested a reform and made a provision that Indian can also be in executive councils of viceroy and governors. And Satyendra Prasad Sinha was the first Indian who joined viceroy's executive council. Okay, so he was appointed as a law member. So after parliamentary reform, we will be covering this Government of India Act of 1919. Okay, do as we are discussing the summary of polity. Okay, so we will not be covering whole the syllabus in that detail. Okay, you have to just get the overview so that you can check yourself where you lie. Okay, so let's talk about Government of India Act 1919. It is known as Montagu Chelmsford Reform. Okay, so it provided the introduction of responsible government office of it also introduced office of High Commissioner of India that was created in London. Office of High Commissioner, this particular Montagu Chelmsford reform basically provided, or you can say it introduced, the office of High Commissioner of India. Most importantly, the High Commissioner of India is not staying in India. His office is in London. Okay, so this is a good point. So Indian legislature became bicameral for the first time. Okay, first time Indian legislature became bicameral. In polity, bicameral is widely used term. Okay, and previously in Parliamentary reform, we have seen that we introduced, they introduced separate electorates for Muslim, but now this communal representation extended to the six Christian Anglo-Indian Muslims as well. Okay, now they are dividing the people, nothing else. Okay, so communal representation is becoming more wider. So they are dividing Indian citizens into their community. Okay, so they started to give communal representation for six Christian Anglo-Indian as well along with Muslims. Okay, and Secretary of State for India now to be paid from the British revenue. And the important thing is this point: diarchy in provinces. Basically, there were transfer subjects and there were reserve subjects. Okay, transfer subjects were dealt by governor with minister, and reserve subjects were taken by governor with executives. Okay, so this point was asked in UPSC pre 2012, which says that devolution of legislative authority by center to provinces, separating central and provincial subjects. Okay, we have separated the central and provincial subjects. Okay, for the first time in the history, that was mentioned in Government of India Act of 1919. So after that, we will be having a great and very useful act that is known as Government of India Act of 1935. It provided for the establishment of All India Federation consisting of provinces and princely states as unit. Note: princely state did not join and so federation didn't come into existence. Okay, Government of India came in 1935. It provided for the first time that there should be an establishment of All India Federation. Okay, that will be consisting provinces and princely states as its units. But princely state did not join and so federation didn't come into existence. And another important point is residuary power were given to the viceroy. This question already came in UPSC prelims in 2018, that residuary power were given to the viceroy. This provision is mentioned in governor, or this provision was given by Government of India Act of 1935. Okay. And it also abolished the diarchy in provinces. Previously we have seen in Government of India Act of 1990 that we introduced diarchy in provinces, but later in Government of India Act of 1935 it abolished the diarchy in provinces and introduced provincial autonomy. Now provinces are autonomous, they are doing and performing like autonomous body over there. Okay, so provincial autonomy is there and introduced by Government of India Act of 1935, introduced responsible government in provinces, introduced bicameralism in 6 out of 11 provinces. Okay, so there were 11 provinces. Out of those 11 provinces, in 6 provinces they introduced bicameralism. Okay, and this particular act, Government of India Act, introduced responsible government in provinces. So another thing that this Government of India Act of 1935 include is that it extended the principle of communal representation by providing separate electorate for depressed classes as well, scheduled caste, women, labor workers. In 1909, it was only for Muslim. So in 1919, it extended for other communities as well, as Sikhs, Indian, Christian, Anglo-Indian. But in this particular act, Government of India Act of 1935, it was taking more wider form. Okay, so it extended the principle of communal representation, and this particular act abolished the Council of India and was established by the Government of India Act of 1858. So this Government of India Act of 1935 abolished the Council of India. This Council of India was introduced by the Government of India Act of 1858. Okay, and the Secretary of State for India was provided with the team of advisors. Secretary of State for India was provided with the team of advisors. And one more thing, it established the Reserve Bank of India to control the currency and credit of the country. So this point is also a very good point, that Government of India Act of 1935, Government of India Act of 1935 is introducing the establishment of Reserve Bank of India. Okay, so that currency and credit of the country can be controlled. Okay, and this particular act established the Federal Public Service Commission, Provincial Public Service Commission, and Joint Public Service Commission for 2 or more provinces. Federal Court, which was set up, and this particular act, Government of India Act of 1935, introduced for the establishment of Federal Court, which was set up in 1937. Okay, so now we will be dealing our today's last act, that is Indian Independence Act, and very important act. Okay, so let's go ahead. On 20 Feb 1947, British PM Clement Attlee declared British rule end by 30 June 1948. Okay, he made this announcement on 25th of 1947, who Clemently British PM, that British rule will be ended by 30 June 30th June of 1948. Okay, and on 3 June of 1947, Mountbatten Plan was accepted. So let's talk about this particular act, what it introduced, and what were the major provisions included in this particular act. Okay, this particular act declared India as independent and sovereign state from August 1947. It provided for creation of two independent dominions of India and Pakistan with the right to secede from the British Commonwealth, and Governor General of each dominion were to be appointed by the king on the advice of dominion, and it empowered the constituent assemblies of the two dominions to frame and adopt any constitution and to repeal any act of the British Parliament, including the Independence Act as well. Okay, and it abolished the office of Secretary of State for India and transferred his function to the Secretary of State for Commonwealth Affairs. It assigned dual function, constituent and legislative, to the Constituent Assembly formed in 1947. It declared the Dominion Legislature as a sovereign body, granted freedom to the Indian princely state either to join the Dominion of India or Dominion of Pakistan or to remain independent. This particular act gave the permission that princely state can join either of two dominion or they can be independent as well. So, aspirant, today's lecture is over. I hope you guys are doing well. So, be happy, stay tuned, and achieve what you want to do, what you want to achieve. Okay, what you want to get that. Okay, be happy, always chill. So, thank you.